Hello, nice to meet you.
What are you doing here at Edinburgh Film Festival?
So I'm at the Edinburgh Film Festival representing Evolutionary Films, primarily. Evolutionary Films are a film production, international sales and UK distributor company. Probably didn't say that right. We've been around for about 5 years, although the individuals that make up the company. So there's myself, there's John Adams, the CEO, there's Diane Shorthouse, the MD, Alistair Audsley is our marketing director, and we have a number of other people who work in the office, our team members like Michael and Ryan. We've all come one way or another from production initially, and a number of us have also worked in sales and distribution to a degree for a number of years before we joined up as a company. And we were very tired of primarily distributors and sales agents, without being disrespectful, not really treating the filmmakers with respect, and not being straight with them when you might as well be. So we're very transparent about what we do. We have to manage expectations a lot with filmmakers because that's part of what it is. But we love making films ourselves, and we love selling films, and we love distributing films. So we like to think we're one of the right companies to deal with.
So can I ask you, in that case, why are you making films? Who are you making the films for?
Why do I make films? My personal filmmaking journey is a very long, dull one, but I love making films because films basically changed my life. So that's probably a long story for another day, but my passion for film started when I was 11 years old. I saw 3 movies that changed my life on that one day. Those 3 films were Revenge of the Ninja, Commando and American Ninja. Previous to that, I was obsessed with comic books, and I would have done anything to work in comics. I drew and wrote comics since the age of 2. Again and again, and those 3 movies I mentioned essentially are like comic books, and they're almost like cartoon characters. Ninjas look like superheroes. Anyway,
can I ask you a question? Are you a big fan of Canon films then?
Canon films literally changed my life. And then obviously Canon essentially became New Image and Millennium, so I'm a big fan of those movies, and the people who make them, in fact. Canon was very much responsible for what you might call my career. And then I guess the lucky thing is that the films that I love to make are very commercial. It just so happens that action is a fairly evergreen genre. If you do action right, hopefully cast it well, you'll probably sell your film. So maybe I'm lucky, I don't know, but that's exactly, those 3 films that I saw were exactly the films that I want to make, and I still want to make them. I want to make different films as well. I'd like to move into horror at some point and other genre areas possibly, but I would be very happy making action films the rest of my life. So in terms of John and Diane, they've made very diverse films and TV before we joined together, and obviously since. So we've made the company, I'll start again, Evolutionary Films have made different types of movies, whether it's horror, action. We sell very different films, so we primarily focus on genre, but we do have some drama, we do have some documentary, which we're very proud of, and we try to anticipate the needs of our buyers internationally, and the audience in the UK, and we try to find product that fits that.
Great. So can you tell me about your Vengeance?
Okay, so Vengeance, the short version of this is wrote this screenplay. It's very heavily influenced by vigilante movies from the 70s, 80s, certain comic book characters that I love as well. And essentially it's an action thriller, a revenge thriller. It's out pretty much everywhere. It's out in the UK. In America it's out as I Am Vengeance. In Japan it's out as Outrageous, the Most Dangerous Man. And it stars Stu Bennett, formerly known as WWE superstar Wade Barrett, and Gary Daniels, who's a martial arts action superstar, for anyone who knows, and a number of great people, quite bluntly. Keith Allen is in it, and I could probably go on and name everybody. But we had a really great cast and crew. The film did very well. John and Diane and the team, the Evolutionary team, sold the film really well, to the point where we greenlit the second film, the imaginatively titled Vengeance 2, as I call it, and that's done very well so far as well. We managed to get Vinnie Jones to be our lead villain. Stu Bennett came back obviously as the lead, and it's a much bigger, better film, I think, in terms of the scale of the action. It's a very different type of movie. That's gone down very well with the buyers at Cannes so far, so that's exciting. And we're nearly finished in post on that. We're very close. So
Something I was going to ask about, when you cast somebody, you're talking about Stu, is that because they've got a market in terms of...
yes, I mean, to a degree. I mean, Stu is a fairly specific case. Obviously, he has a very big following from his WWE career, although he's done other films as well, and he's done presenting on things like Ultimate Beastmaster and the World of Sport Wrestling, which is back, which is fantastic. So he has a following in different ways. He has a lot of followers on Twitter and Instagram, and he's super interactive with people. I think he has a great respect for the people, like the fans that support him, and obviously that's very useful when you're casting a movie. Obviously, also Stu being WWE, obviously demonstrates he has a certain amount of action ability, which translated very well to the screen. And he'd also done a film called Eliminators with Scott Adkins, which was shot at 3 Studios, which is where our company's based. So through a series of convenient incidents, we were able to meet Stu, get an introduction, give him a script, etc. That's basically how he joined on. There's a longer story to that, but that's basically how it happened.
So how do you package up, how do you get money for the film, basically? Where does the money come from?
The short answer to that is we have equity investors that we deal with. Pretty much that simple.
Right.
It helps that we have a route to market as a sales company. It helps that we're a UK distributor. So while we'll talk to other companies, just in case, if there's interest, it helps that we can actually physically distribute the film in the UK as a backstop, as we would call it. But we're growing in that respect. I don't think of ourselves as a backstop anymore. I think we're a legit UK distributor. So if I not just think, I know we are. So that's useful. So if we're making a movie, or if we're getting involved in the production of a film in one way or another, or we're helping another production get on its feet, I think it's useful, assuming we are the sales agent for that company, we can demonstrate to investors that we have a route to market.
Is the pre-sales market, does it still work the same as it used to?
That might be, pre-sales might be a question more for John and Diane in general. I would say that there is a small possibility of things like that, but I don't think it's not really there like it was, say, 10 years ago.
Right.
So how beneficial is it coming to these festivals for yourself?
That's an interesting question. I'm really glad to be here. In previous years, John has represented the company at Edinburgh. I've found it fascinating. I think, first of all, I think the city's beautiful, and I think that the Edinburgh Festival team have done an amazing job of the events that are here. The things that I have specifically participated in was, yesterday I did a series of one-to-one meetings with filmmakers who were really at the script stage, and as a company, Evolutionary Films, if your film's at the script stage, there's not an awful lot we can do to get involved. We would need something further down the line, a script packaged with finance, acting, name actors, and maybe a director with track record and things like that. But it's still very useful to see what projects are out there and what's working. I was particularly impressed with the fact that most of the filmmakers were quite genre-based, which, if you pick a genre, there's probably a market for it. So I like that. You need to be able to demonstrate a knowledge of the market for your film. So even at the script level, that's interesting. And then today, today I attended essentially a works in progress session where there was about, I think it was a dozen filmmakers whose projects are all essentially in production or in post, and they were looking for sales, distribution, marketing, a little bit of money here and there in terms of keeping their projects moving or delivering them to the market. I think that they were somewhat variable. Just in my opinion, commercially speaking, I think there was a variable quality there, although some of them were very, very well presented. I feel there were a few that seemed a little bit... there were a few projects where I was essentially thinking, why are you here? And I think it's important for the filmmakers to be able to show why they're here. And I feel there were a couple that were lacking in that, not to sound negative, because it's great when anyone's making a film. But those are the main reasons that we're here. Obviously, there's networking to be done. There was a great film quiz on the first night, which my team won, so I was very happy. And I will be attending, and I'll be attending that quiz later. I just loved it. So, yeah, I hope that's helpful.
How is the industry adapting with video on demand and all the changes of theatrical and the internet and everything? It's went 360 in the last 15 years.
I think I suppose it depends on how you separate it into sales and UK distribution. If you're looking at UK distribution, obviously the physical market is close to dead, DVD and Blu-ray. It does exist. There are some titles that we're quite keen to put on the physical side of things, Blu-ray and DVD. It really depends on whether retail outlets will take it. You have to pitch in your films, your titles, to supermarkets and to, say, HMV and FOP and similar, and the platforms themselves, in fact. So it's important to understand how you pitch your movie it's important to understand how you pitch your movie to the outlets that will be selling it to the audience. That's critical, and that is shrinking. No matter what we do, it's simply shrinking. I'm a big fan of DVD and Blu-ray myself. My own film isn't out on Blu-ray or DVD in the UK, and I have to get the American version, but I'm also a realist because it's a business. There's no point in us making a Blu-ray or DVD if the outlets aren't going to accept that film. It might happen for the sequel. That's another thing. So that's changed. Obviously, the large majority of where a film is exposed these days is online. Please don't pirate films, by the way. That's really damaging.
Do you think that's still relevant though? Because everybody's watching on Amazon and Netflix, we're already buying.
I agree with that, but you'll still find there's an awful lot of torrent sites and a lot of people downloading films. I have a good friend, Scott Adkins, who is well known to essentially be an action martial arts guy. He's a very good actor, but he's primarily in action martial arts movies, and he regularly encounters people, I'm sure, tweeting and communicating with him saying, I loved your movie, I downloaded it, and he regularly says, that's not available there, how did you get it? And they've pirated the film, and they don't see any problem with it. And look, it's great that people want to see those movies, but seek them out legally, because you're genuinely not helping those people. And it's lovely that you like the movie, but please do it legally if you can. Like, I appreciate the situation where some people can't see films any other way, but that's maybe there's a slightly.
We should see things going in the next 5-10 years in terms of film industry.
Shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and we should be honest about that.
So how are you going to survive? How are you going to innovate and evolve with it?
I think you just said it. I think you have to adapt, survive, and overcome. Was it adapt, improvise, and overcome?
Something like that.
And also make films. Actually, no. The best answer to that question is simply research the market before you make your film. Just find out what's going on, and even then, there's no guarantees. But speak to sales agents, speak to distributors, find out what it is that they're looking for. Find out. And again, this is unpredictable, but find out how much money they might give you, and then try and spend less money to make the film, if it's possible, if you want to recoup your money. If you don't want to recoup your money, it doesn't matter. But if you want to keep making films, you need to research the market, find out what genres work, and if the film you want to make isn't something that is served well by the market, unless you've got A-list cast, I mean, go and make your movie, it's admirable, but do you want it to make any money? So we encounter filmmakers all the time whose expectations we have to manage very specifically, because they haven't been out there, done their research, and found out if their film has any value.
So once you've got your film, like you've got your film, how do you select the actors?
I would ask distributors and sales agents. It's very simple. I would, and look, it's almost unpredictable, but look at IMDb Pro and see who's in the top 5,000, and see who's up and coming as well. See who's, in a year's time when your film's finished, has that person just been cast in something? It's a lot of work, actually. And again, even no matter what you do, you're not going to know. I saw a couple of presentations where they talked about the actors in their films being, having been in quite high-profile TV shows, which is great, except that the international market, these were UK TV shows, the international market won't care. I mean, they'll be great actors. One of the things we encounter a lot, we're very, very conservative with things like sales estimates. It's important to us. We don't want to mislead anyone. Sales estimates can be very valuable for getting investment to get your film made, which is important. But we won't bullshit people. So we often come across people who are like, well, we need your sales figures to say more. And our response sort of has to be, well, then you need to get the cast to justify it. It's not complicated, and we're not, I'm just using us as an example, we're not doing that to be difficult. We're doing it to be realistic with the buyers that we talk to every day. So I think it's really important for filmmakers to understand that and to talk to a variety of people and see whoever they feel aligned with. It's very easy to be swept up.
I think people get confused with festivals. If they win awards, that's going to translate to finance and money and making money. It doesn't always.
It's not. I mean, look, how long is a piece of string? Like, there are some films that can end up being festival darlings and then doing very well, which is fantastic. A festival route is actually very important for some films.
So how important is festivals and screenings?
So, in our experience, I mean, obviously you have to sort of separate a festival from a market. We find market screenings, on the whole, aren't very useful. Maybe I shouldn't quite put it that way, as in, I think we've done a few here and there, and if they attract the right people, that's fantastic. Festival screenings is obviously a different situation, because, essentially they're going for profile and they're going for exposure and, dare I say, awards and so forth. So I feel that there's a little bit more, this is just a personal opinion, I feel there's probably more value in the right festival screen. I mean, Edinburgh's fantastic, obviously, and there are places like, Carlow, Vary, South by Southwest, Austin. I don't want to now not mention film festivals. Other film festivals are now available, but there are. I mean, BFI. There are obviously festivals, the right festivals, where you can get that exposure and get your film attention, and maybe that will lead to some success in sales as well, or distribution. It's very easy to get your film screened at lots of little festivals that, with no disrespect intended, simply won't do anything for your film. It's always great to win awards, no one's going to deny it, I've had it myself, and it feels good, and it gives you validation. And to Joe Public, who watch your film, when they see a lot of laurels, they obviously feel there's something there. But when it comes to genuinely increasing your sales and distribution, it essentially has to be the right festival. And let's face it, there's a couple of handfuls of those. So I think screenings at those festivals are very helpful. It does depend on your film, and can be useful. And there are distributors there. There are people there who will give your film a bit of exposure. So I hope that's not a too long a way of saying it, but I think the right festival screening is great. And even then, I suppose there's no guarantees. But yeah, no, I feel the right festival exposure can be fantastic for your film. I'm very aware that there are, particularly in the UK film industry, I think there are some sort of indie darling filmmakers who have very much benefited from that exposure. It's fantastic. It's given them reputation and the ability to make films.
The next Peter Jackson is 12 years old. Forget about the business, forget about the markets, forget about all that. Advice to anybody who just wants to make movies.
Okay, it's difficult because I was 11 when I started doing.
Okay, 11.
But for me, the reason why I did it was I suddenly saw these 3 movies and then a bunch of others where I was like, how do I do that? What do I do? So what I did was, me and my friends watched all of these films. We watched them frame by frame sometimes to see how do you do a fight? So they started off with, we didn't know what close-ups and mid-shots were, and we didn't understand editing at all. Particularly back in the day, we were crash editing on VHS. We had no computers for this. It was literally that kind of thing. So we would watch a Jackie Chan film like Wheels on Meals or Project A or whatever, or loads of Canon films, and be like, okay, in that fight, so they go from that shot of his face, and then there they change it when he throws the punch, and it was I guess, if it's a young person taking up a film camera, watch as many films as possible and make as many films as possible, because you learn by doing it. You don't learn by reading about it. I mean, it's good to study, but in the end you learn by doing it and working with the right people. And as a word of advice, in my opinion, to anyone, always work with people who are better than you.
Yeah.
At every level. I'm aware of filmmakers who they're sort of unnerved when they might have to work with someone who's fantastic and essentially better than them.
They want to control everything too much, and they don't want to collaborate.
And they don't want other people sort of superseding their, if that's the right word, their decision making, which is understandable if you're a director. But I've always, for mine, get actors who are better every time. If you can, get filmmakers who are better every time. Or look, I've worked with some of the same crew again and again, but they've been doing so much more work on a regular basis. They're always better each time, and they're way more improved, in my opinion, than I am. And I really value that, because it means you have to raise your game. So whatever level you are, whether you're young, whatever, or you're making your 10th feature, I would say find people who are way better than you are, genuinely, or more respected, or whatever it is, and work with them if you can.
That's a sound advice, great advice. Are you proud of what you've done?
I'm not brilliant at chest beating. I'm really proud of the work that other people put in, if I'm honest. And I'm really proud.
I get what you're saying.
I'm really proud also when people that I've worked with have gone on to do other things. Like,
But that's a true collaborator.
I just feel that
Because film is about collaborating.
I find it very hard to be proud of myself. I find that difficult. I'm always happy when someone has enjoyed the process of working, and when people communicate say they like a film that I've done. My first question is normally why. My second thing is say thank you so much for watching it, and yeah, I mean it encourages me, but you can't take it all to heart. Like if you took because you get negative reviews as much as positive reviews, and you can't take that all on. You just have to kind of go, yes, okay.
You've got to get that Hollywood blockbuster to negative reviews. No matter what level it's at.
For me, it's literally about making each film as well as possible and trying to enjoy it as much as possible with everybody involved, and then I really do enjoy seeing other people work with other. Like one of the most rewarding things I get out of making films, for real, is when I introduce someone to someone else. They work together and they have a good experience. On occasion, we've shown drafts of films to people to get notes, which I think is valuable. I always say with feedback, it's important to hear it and then decide if you agree. Particularly if you get, dare I say, if you have time, get 3 or 4 totally different people. Because if 3 or 4 people say the same thing, again, you don't have to agree, but then you can at least acknowledge that different people with different perspectives are sort of saying similar stuff.
The same thing, you have to look at yourself.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to say, well, actually, I can't do anything about that. That's something that's just tough shit. Pardon my language. But I think it can be valuable, and it's really easy to say this, but getting feedback from the right people. Like, it's good to get supportive people, but you do need them to be able to tear something to pieces. Otherwise, what's the point?
With friends.
Constructive criticism.
Well, yeah, because if everyone's just saying you're great, like, why are you gonna? You can't learn.
No.
You can't learn anything. No. So, yeah, no, actually, I think it's very important to get feedback when you can. But it's up to you to decide if you want to take it on board. I think in the end, it's kind of instinctive as well. I think it's very easy to say you become too attached to a film when you're editing it, which is true, although I generally think I'm quite good at being ruthless about things.
I think good filmmakers are highly critical of themselves, even more than critics anyway.
Yeah, I think overall I'm pretty good, not always, but pretty good at cutting things out, not for the sake of it, but to be able to go, you have to let that go. No one cares that took 3 hours, move on.
I remember my first movie, and I was at the Stratosphere Tower. We'd done a scene in Las Vegas, and Stratosphere Tower, great location, 2 in the morning. It took us so hard to get. It was like in line with the Stratosphere Tower. The producer came up to me 2 weeks later and said, David, I've got something to tell you. I said, Stratosphere Tower needs to go. He went, what? I says, we're going to cut it. As a filmmaker, he says, normally filmmakers want to keep that because it's high production value. He says, it needs to go, it doesn't follow the story. And he went, well, you should edit. Because you can get too close to things.
You need to know. I mean, my second feature, which did rather well for itself, was called 10 Dead Men. It was a lot of hard work and had a lot of amazing people help us for basically nothing, which was very grateful for. And on a personal level, when I edited it, I literally cut out my 2 favourite shots of the film because they simply didn't progress the story whatsoever. And I wasn't making a point to anyone, but I did. And when I say my favourite shots, one of them was just this insane shot of we're at Brighton Marina, 2 bad guys are walking down like the harbour, like the marina, like the harbour or whatever it is, and totally randomly, it's essentially an establishing shot. And as they're walking towards camera, hundreds and hundreds of seagulls suddenly took off behind them and flew across screen. Like, it looked insane. It was the most absurd, and I was like, it's not really useful for anything. It doesn't actually make anything. It would look.
Some filmmakers get too invested in that day.
Right. It took us 6 hours to do this. Exactly. No one will care.
Nobody cares.
So, yeah. So you have to be able to, and that's advice to filmmakers as well. Is like no one cares. Yeah, you have to detach. You have to detach. It's difficult, but you have to detach.
Yeah. Look, Ross, Evelyn, you wrap up.
Oh.
I think you did. I thought we stopped about 20. I thought we stopped about 10 minutes ago.
The filmmakers intervened here. No, thanks, man. Really
appreciate it. It's been really good fun.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for thinking of me. Appreciate it. Oh, you too.